Well, welcome to our Friday afternoon news talk video here from Crittenden, from the Crittenden Press in Marion, Kentucky. I want to introduce our guest today. If you're looking at the screen, Bob, on your left is Bob Yelling, an award-winning author, and he is the founder of Word Journeys. And I like to describe Bob as perhaps the most famous Crittenden Countyan that maybe not everybody knows. Forrest Pogue. When we put the monument up to Forrest Pogue over at the library, I introduced had part in that, and we introduced him as the most famous Crittenden Countyan that no one. And so it's good company with Forrest Pogue.
Sounds like it. Thank you.
Yeah. And our other guest today is Wade Berry, who is the president and the CEO of Farmers Bank and Trust in Marion, Kentucky. And of course, Farmers Bank has grown into one of the larger banks in the area, and it has offices or branches in at least in 7 counties in western Kentucky. Today, I want to mention that probably the most striking breaking news, I guess you might say, that we have on the COVID crisis right now is the fact that the school district has announced that plans are to hold graduation in person in some way, shape, or form. If that means delaying this until June or even July, possibly. So just stay tuned to the Crittenden Press for details on that next week. We're going to get our show started today, and we'll be done in time for the governor. I know a lot of people like to turn over and see what Andy's got to say every day, so we're going to try to finish our show up here today. I'm your host, Chris Evans, the editor and the publisher of the Crittenden Press, and we're going to begin with Bob Yelling. Bob, I'll tell people, Bob is a part-time Crittenden Countyan. He lives here, but he has an office here. He writes from home. He's written hundreds of articles, and his resume is quite extensive, but he's written 10 books. But he is a part-time resident of his hometown, also in Carlsbad, California. So on a totally different end of the spectrum, Bob Yelling, explain how Crittenden County compares to Carlsbad, California, in dealing with what's going on right now.
Sure. Well, thanks a lot for having me. Yeah, I've kind of had a foot in both worlds for many years now, and Carlsbad is, it's part of San Diego County, so it's very populous. Carlsbad has a population of about 125,000, and then we have Crittenden County, of course. I think the biggest difference I've noticed is that one's a rural environment and the other one's suburban. And the biggest difference is out here, it seems to me like the mindset of the COVID crisis among the people here is that it's just another hardship. The calmness, the people being very matter of fact about what needs to happen, more or less obeying a stay-at-home order. It just calms everyone down, and it makes it a lot to deal with this, because I'm very fortunate in that what I do for my living, I work out of my home, a rented home here in Marion as well, and so it really isn't that much of a lifestyle adjustment for me. However, for people in Carlsbad, it's a huge adjustment because they can't drive. The rules are far stricter in California than they are in Kentucky, where in Carlsbad, if you're caught even sitting on a park bench, it's an automatic $1,000 fine. And there are reasons for that. It's much more densely populated, so they have to be stringent about it because COVID is so contagious. The other thing, of course, that does is creates a lot of tension and angst and a lot of uncertainty about people and their jobs. The other big difference between Crittenden County and Carlsbad, I think, is cost of living. Out in California, you need to make a good amount of money to make ends meet, and so if you're without work for 2, 3, 4 weeks, or 2 or 3 or 4 months, that's a huge financial burden. Here, it's not nearly so bad. Obviously, if you miss work for a couple of weeks, that's a problem, and it's a problem that's becoming greater and greater for some people now, for sure. But I just think it just doesn't feel like that much of a dire strait here yet. Now, I mean, I say this knowing that if we have a second wave of this stuff, or if it really hits the rural counties hard, like Crittenden County, that could all just change in a second.
You know, I like to say that in Crittenden County, we've been social distancing well before social distancing was cool.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and we're pretty good at it. Everyone
Yeah.
has most everyone has their own home. We're not packed into apartment buildings, so it's interesting. And the financial part of it is interesting too to take note of. I'll mention that today's broadcast is brought to you by Mickey Alexander. Of course, Mickey is a former mayor here in Marion, Kentucky, and he's a longtime financial advisor. If you need some counseling right now on your finances, as we all do right now, it's such a difficult time to sort through what's going on financially with the markets and any other investments. But you can stop by and talk to Mickey. He's located right next door to the Crittenden Press on East Belleville Street. And we're going to go right into another financial specialist here, Wade Berry, who is the president and CEO of Farmers Bank and Trust, which is headquartered here in Marion, Kentucky. But gosh, Wade, you guys are all over West Kentucky now, from Bowling Green to Salem.
We are, and that presents unique challenges. You know, this is home to us and always will be. We were founded here in 1899. Of course, we're a young company compared to the Crittenden Press. You're 20 years older than we are, but yeah, we've been around a long time. We are in some very different communities now. We have counties like Crittenden with populations around 9,000. 3 of our counties are like that, and then we have counties as large as Bowling Green with 128,000, not counting the students. But it's a unique time in our history, just as it is our entire country's.
Well, with this, with the CARES Act and the SBA financial assistance that's coming down, which is being facilitated by local banks, I know you have been very involved in that and serving your customers and the payroll protection plans and such. Talk a little bit about how that has been challenging and what it's been like to deal with the government agency. I know you do some SBA loans anyway, but when you're dealing with this many at one time.
Well, it's been a challenge to say the least. Let's say this big picture, this Paycheck Protection Program is fantastic for our small businesses. And really every business we deal with nearly is small. The government defines that as 500 or fewer employees, so that's basically everyone for us. So the program's tremendous in that it really does allow these small businesses to keep paychecks in the hands of their employees. So we very much support the mission of it. We have done literally hundreds of them, but the system just wasn't ready to do them as quickly as they came out. The Small Business Administration and the Treasury were in charge of this, and the time frame they had to implement it, there was almost no guidance for the banks. So I'm really proud of our team. We rolled up our sleeves. I mean, people were working almost literally round the clock, trying to understand the potential rules, regulations, what little guidance there was, so that we could get money in the hands of our local people. It's so important to keep people from having to go to work right now. We have to keep our social distance in order to be healthy and get through this crisis. But if people don't have checks in their hands, they're gonna work. They're just gonna go do something. They have to. So I was thankful to be a part of it, but was really proud of our team at the bank. Working in difficult conditions, many folks working from home. Just a really interesting and challenging time for us, but we were able to respond.
Now, a good number of businesses I know here in the community are starting to receive their payroll protection plan money, and also the stimulus money is being electronically deposited in a lot of individual accounts right now, if you qualify. So what have you seen, or is that going smoothly, or the people getting their money the way they should, or are you getting calls that people who don't have electronic banking are kind of left out of the mix, aren't they?
They are. It's my understanding that the stimulus checks to those who do not have an account number, you know, if you have with the IRS bank account on file that they can deposit to, it seems to go pretty well. If not, you'll likely get one in the mail, and those are to start going out about May the 4th. But the situations are much better for those who have an established account. Many of them have already received those funds, but certainly not all. So.
How can you, as a banker, certainly you have your ear to the rail, so to speak. How can you gauge or can you quantify the economic difficulties that many of the businesses here are starting to see? Can you quantify that in any way? I hear a lot of different numbers. There are some common denominators.
Well, the issue is that it's just not the same for everybody. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of businesses that will say, we've slowed down a bit, but we're doing okay. Maybe we're off 25%, 30%. And then there are the hotels, the motels, the dine-in restaurants who are just devastated. I mean, the rules that have been put in place effectively shut them down. So that's why it's so important to support these restaurants in particular in any way that you can. Order takeout from them. We've tried to do that as a bank a lot. So the challenges are great for certain ones, and then there are a few that haven't experienced a lot of this. It just depends on what business you're in.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to make mention again that today's broadcast is brought to you by Mickey Alexander. He's a longtime financial advisor here in Marion, Kentucky. He's a former mayor, and you can find Mickey at his office, which is right next door to the Crittenden Press here on East Belleville Street. Not even a door down from the 5-star convenience center here at the crossroads, I guess you might say, in Marion, Kentucky. My name's Chris Evans, and I'm the editor publisher of the Crittenden Press newspaper. We've been doing this Friday afternoon NewsTalk update since the COVID crisis began. Today, our guests are Bob Yelling, who is a noted author, and he has two homes. One's in Crittenden County, one's in Carlsbad, California. Our other guest today is Wade Berry, who is the President and CEO of Farmers Bank, which obviously serves Crittenden and Livingston counties, but has locations in 7 counties in West Kentucky. We're going to go back to Bob real quick. Bob Yelling, founder of Word Journeys. You're a guy who knows a whole lot about journaling. And right now, I stress to my children and anyone else who will listen, we're seeing history being made, and it's what an opportunity it is, even though it is a devastating part of history and one we'll look back on as indeed a crisis. But how important is it right now to, get some of this stuff down and save for posterity for your family archive?
Yeah, I think it's really important in 2 ways. Number one, we in the writing community like to think of journaling as the 1 cent per hour therapist, because if something's going on within you, write it out, and really you can get a lot. You can accomplish a lot, and I think so. For that reason alone, it's really important to journal, especially for adults. Because there's just a lot of uncertainty and anxiousness and so forth, and by writing it out, it just helps put some perspective on it in relation to your life, and it also just takes some of the nervousness away. It just makes you feel a bit better, especially when you do it out in nature, which here you've got a copious amount of nature. So that's really important to do. Historically, absolutely. I mean, this is a time. This is going to be just like Pearl Harbor, just like that period of time, and I think it's going to be just like 9/11, and so what we write now is going to be the living history 5 years from now. Mm-hmm. And there's just so much going on, and our lives have changed so dramatically, so suddenly, that this is just, it's, as a pure writer, it's just pure rich writing material.
Yeah. So the catchphrase, where were you, or everybody remembers where they were when Kennedy was assassinated, mm-hmm. when the space shuttle blew up, and so now, where were you when the COVID crisis hit? Well, I was home alone, I guess. I don't know. We're all practicing social distancing. I don't know. And this is there's no one just definitive moment for this one, is
Well, I think there's a lot of different answers to that, because, someone that's someone that living in San Diego or here is going to have a far different answer than someone living in New York City. And that's one of the things about this virus is it's just its intensity is so much different in different places that we all have entirely different experiences, which is why it's just so important, I feel, to write about it.
I know you have some things going on with the Crittenden County Public Library. If you'd
Yes.
like to share some of that information.
Yeah, in the spirit of journaling and writing essays, and also knowing that a lot of the Crittenden County teachers, as far as the home education or online education that's going on right now, have asked their students to keep journals and write about this. The Friends of the Library and Word Journeys and also the Crittenden Press are teaming up to present a writing contest. So there will be 3 age group divisions, 10 and under, 11 to 17, and 18 and over or adult. And we're asking for just short essays or journal pieces. So for the older groups, anyone over 10 years old, that would be anywhere between 300 and 1,000 words. And for the 10 and unders, 1 to 200 words, just to write about your experiences, some new things you've learned about yourself, some things you've done, some new experiences you've had, or even just how you're coping with COVID-19. And then we're going to take in entries for the next month or so, and the entry fees are $5 per piece. For those 11 and older, the 10 and under entries are free. And then we're going to have 3 prize winners in each of the 3 categories. We'll announce them around Memorial Day, and we'll have over $100 in prizes for each of the categories. So it's just a really fun thing. It helps out the Friends of the Library. It gives everybody something really fun and to have a contest on, since we can't have sports contests or any other kind of contests now. Well, we can always have writing contests because you just do that at home.
Sure.
And I just feel it's going to be a really nice thing for the community to be able to write out their feelings and just their experiences with this. And then we'll, thanks to you, we'll be publishing the winning pieces either in print or online, that to be determined later. So it's just going to be a really nice community contest, and I welcome everybody and their kids to send in as many entries as you can, and let's see what your experiences with this are.
Yeah, of course, everyone's experience is different, and if you're experiencing questions now about your investments, you can talk to Mickey Alexander here in Marion, Kentucky. He's a longtime financial advisor, and his office is located on East Belleville Street, right next to the Crittenden Press. Wade Berry, we're going back to our banker here. Wade Berry's been in the banking business, gosh, Wade, since you got out of high school, hadn't you?
Feels like it.
And that was just not very long ago, was it? But you have of course seen the banking business change. You've watched it go for probably I'm sure when you started ledger sheets to computers and then now online banking, the electronic, doing your banking with your phone. But now the whole banking business has changed, the way the internal workings of it had. I mean, you guys you're finding out that you can actually work from home as a banker. Maybe some of these folks will get less seat time in the office, going forward. How is this going to change business, the way things we've learned from this crisis?
Well, I think it's going to change a lot of things, and you referenced one of them, which is the working from home. I think people, it's not like that concept is new to America, but around here, banking's a very traditional business that tends to have traditional ideas, and the working from home thing is not anything banks have typically done, and we're finding that it's working extremely well, and people are highly productive from home. I've just been really impressed watching the folks I work with and how well they do from that environment. Our situation, we're open in our drive-throughs, so we still are serving people that way. We've seen, heavy use of our mobile banking, which is with your phone, certainly online banking, lots of ATM usage. But we're seeing a surprising number of customers still by appointment in the lobby. I mean, people have not, everything hasn't just ground to a halt. I mean, we've had new loans taken out besides just the program. We're making loans. We're seeing people open accounts. But to your original question, I think banking, people working from home, fewer meetings face to face. Bankers are famous for meetings. We meet all the time. We have conventions. We have bankers meet a lot, and that's going to be reduced a lot. It already has been, but I think we're seeing we can function pretty well. All these systems we've had in place in case of emergency, they seem to be working very well.
And hopefully your banker association meeting is rescheduled for the Hotel Del Coronado, because that would be a tough one to say to have canceled.
Exactly.
So your entire staff is, I know you've kind of done much like some of the factories and some of the other larger businesses with a lot of people, platooning your staff, I guess you might say.
Yeah, we are. We're the customer contact, the people who are serving our customers at the drive-thrus, they're rotating. We have one team work for a week while the second team stays home, and then we rotate. And again, that's gone really well. We've had such positive experiences with our employees, and they've shown a lot of resilience. And our customers have been incredibly supportive. They've been appreciative. It's times like this that show that you really do have the deep relationships that you had hoped you had. You really do, and that's encouraging.
Well, speaking of relationships and relationships to our community, I'll say, I'm getting a number of people who are posting, Bob, you'll be glad to know this, they're willing to pay for these children's fees for the library writing contest.
Wow.
So you're getting some people, there you go. So
Fantastic.
yeah, nice gesture
No,
there.
I think it's just going to be really neat to see what everybody writes. That's going to be the part of the thrill of that for me, for sure.
So now, are you sticking around here for the rest of the spring, or are you going to head
Well,
back to California?
I live here full time now,
Okay.
and I have for almost a year. I go out to California occasionally because being in the publishing business, my business 95% of it is in two places, New York and LA.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so
You got to avoid those places right now, right?
Yeah, I don't want to be there, either one. But yeah, I'll be around for sure.
Yeah. I want to remind you that today's broadcast is brought to you by Mickey Alexander, your local financial advisor. You can catch Mickey at his office on East Belleville Street, right next door to the Crittenden Press. Wade Berry, here's the last question for our banker. Everybody talks about, I don't use money now. It's too dirty. It's got the virus on it. So I guess the $1 million question, no pun intended, is: are you wiping down all the cash over there?
Maybe spraying it off a little bit.
Is there anything you do, honestly, to disinfect money? Because people are out there, who knows where a buck came from?
Probably nothing meaningful.
Nothing meaningful you can do, yeah.
As opposed to washing it, right?
Yeah, right. Just don't say laundering it. Just don't say
Excellent point. So just wash your hands after handling it.
Exactly.
And I found myself really using my credit card more for that particular reason. And we don't have hardly any incidents of cases here. And I will make that mention. Right now, only 3 known cases in Crittenden County. A lot of people question some of the numbers we put online. Most of those numbers that we are putting online come straight from Crittenden Hospital. So those are tests at Crittenden Hospital. And so far, all have been negative there. Our positive cases have actually been diagnosed elsewhere. Appreciate you guys. Bob Yelling, the founder of Word Journeys, and author of multiple books and some great ones. And hey, he's got all kinds of stories to tell. He knew Payne Stewart, and just, hey, tune in to Journeys online. Check Bob out. Wade Berry, CEO of the Farmers Bank here in Marion, Kentucky, one of the oldest businesses in the community, and a great partner of our community. We appreciate you guys being here and sharing some things that are going on in your professions right now.
Thank you.
I'll remind you again, today's broadcast has been brought to you by Mickey Alexander, your local financial advisor.